Hello once again, children. Thus far, we've looked at the brain, the spinal cord, the reflex action, the eye, and today we're going to be looking at the ear, the structure of the ear, and the role played by the ear in bringing about the sensation of hearing. But very importantly, the ear also plays a role in balance, but we'll be looking at balance in the next lesson. Today, let's just focus on the ear, the structure, and then the pathway taken by the sound waves until the receptors for hearing are stimulated. Let's just first look at the structure. The ear can be divided into three parts: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. When it comes to the outer ear, they talk about the pinna, and you must know how each part is structurally suited to perform its function. So the pinna is said to be trumpet shaped. If you look at the shape of a trumpet, it's got a wide area and then a narrow area. So it is trumpet shaped to trap the sound waves and direct them into the auditory canal. So this area here is called the auditory canal. Some people also talk about the ear having those ridges. If you feel your ear right now, it's got like some patterns on it. Those are called the ridges, which also serve to direct the sound waves into the ear canal or the auditory canal. So the auditory canal itself allows the sound waves to pass through to reach the tympanic membrane, which you commonly know as your eardrum. But please do not use the term eardrum, use the term tympanic membrane. Very importantly, my darlings, is that the auditory canal, not only does it allow the sound waves to pass through to reach the tympanic membrane, it is also lined by hair and by wax glands that produce wax or cerumen, cerumen, which serves to trap the dust or any insect that may come in as an unwelcome visitor. So that's your outer ear, filled with air. Your middle ear. Your middle ear, very importantly, opens up into your pharynx, which is the upper part of your trachea. And it's actually your mouth, which leads into a common tube called the pharynx. And that pharynx leads to your trachea and your esophagus. So opening out into the trachea would be your eustachian tube. And the reason why it opens into the pharynx is that the pharynx is normally filled with air unless you are eating or swallowing some fluid. And this air can be sucked up or can be expelled to equalize the air pressure on both sides of the tympanic membrane. So here there's air, here there's air, and you want the air pressure on both sides of the tympanic membrane to be equal so that the tympanic membrane will vibrate freely. Only when it vibrates freely can the vibrations be transmitted efficiently into the inner ear, and then you find that your cochlea, which is your receptor for hearing, which lies here, can be stimulated effectively. So you need your tympanic membrane to vibrate freely. And what allows it to vibrate freely is that the eustachian tube helps in equalizing the air pressure on both sides of the tympanic membrane by either sucking in air or by expelling air. The crazy thing is, because it opens up into the pharynx, when you got a sore throat or a cold, the mucus that is produced in your throat can find its way up the eustachian tube. And when it finds its way up the eustachian tube, it is very difficult for air to be sucked in or expelled from the middle ear. And should you have a situation where there's a sudden change in air pressure, you can actually have your eardrum bursting because of the unequal pressure on both sides of the tympanic membrane. Then, once the tympanic membrane vibrates, it passes the vibration through the three tiniest bones in the body called the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. Now notice the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, although not so visible over here, decrease in size. So as the vibrations move from the tympanic membrane to the hammer, to the anvil, and to the stirrup, the vibrations are amplified. When you go from something big to something small, the vibrations become more intense. Okay? And then you'd find that the stirrup will now pass the vibrations onto the second membrane in the ear. The first membrane was a tympanic membrane. The second one is your oval window. Now here's another reason why the vibrations are amplified, in that the oval window has a small surface area, much smaller surface area compared to the tympanic membrane. And because you're going from a large surface area to a smaller surface area, once again, the vibrations are amplified, because you don't want the vibrations to die down, else your organ of Corti will not be efficiently or effectively stimulated. So hammer, anvil, stirrup, collectively known as the ossicles. And then the oval window starts to vibrate. And when the oval window vibrates, it will now pass the vibrations onto the inner ear. So here's all the parts of the inner ear, my dear children. But the only part that we're worried about with regards to hearing is this snail-like structure, and that is called the cochlea. And inside the cochlea, let me just draw what is inside of the cochlea. So inside the cochlea, you'd find that there is a sensitive structure here. And this sensitive structure inside the cochlea represents the receptors for sound. And the receptors for sound, which are found inside the cochlea, the receptors for sound are called, or is called in this case, the organ of Corti. So just like how you had receptors for light in your eyes, the rods and the cones, you got receptors for sound waves, or here they call them pressure waves, because now once you hit the inner ear, the vibrations are passing through fluid. Your outer ear, it was passing through air. Middle ear, it was passing through air. But once you come into the inner ear, the vibrations pass through fluid. So we now call it the pressure waves. So the pressure waves will now stimulate the organ of Corti, which is found in the cochlea. And the organ of Corti, if a receptor is stimulated, impulses are created, which are then taken by this nerve, the auditory nerve, to the cerebrum, where the impulse is interpreted. Always end by saying where the impulse is interpreted. So that particular, if you can look at this pathway taken by these arrows, represent the pathway taken by the sound waves in bringing about the sensation of hearing. There are easy ways to remember this, and I taught the children a mnemonic, but let's trim the mnemonic that I taught the children, because the mnemonic tends to be a little bit, the mnemonic tends to be having more information than what is needed. So this is the way we teach the children to remember this. Pat, my darling. Pat, P, let's do it, A, T, H, A, S, Pat has O-car. Pat has O-car. So what does it stand for? The pinna traps the sound waves and directs it into the auditory canal, A. The tympanic membrane starts to vibrate, T. The vibrations are passed on to the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, and they start to vibrate. And then the oval window vibrates, transmitting the vibrations into the inner ear, causing the organ of Corti to be stimulated. The organ of Corti, where, my darlings? In the cochlea, to be stimulated. Impulses to be created, taken by A, the auditory nerve, to the cerebrum, where the impulse is interpreted. And finally, any extra pressure waves in the inner ear is absorbed by this third membrane called the round window. So there's your round window. So the function of the round window is to absorb all the extra pressure waves set up in the inner ear. So Pat has O-car, or Pat has, what does O stand for? Anything you want to have, like any name of a car that starts with O. Oof, I can't think of anything right now. You can think of the name of a car that starts with O. So Pat has O-car, P for pinna, A for auditory canal, T for tympanic membrane, hammer, anvil, stirrup, oval window starts to vibrate, and then the organ of Corti in the cochlea becomes stimulated. Impulses are carried by the auditory nerve to the cerebrum and interpreted. And finally, extra pressure waves in the inner ear is absorbed by the round window. Here it is here, my darlings. See, pinna traps the sound waves and directs them to the auditory canal. Tympanic membrane vibrates and transmits the vibrations to the ossicles. The hammer, anvil, and stirrup are the ossicles. The ossicles amplify the vibrations and carry them via the middle ear to the membrane of the oval window. The oval window starts to vibrate. The oval window vibrates and causes pressure waves in the inner ear. So cochlea, these vibrations cause the sensory cells in the organ of Corti. Oh, I forgot the oval window here. Isn't it so, my papas? So there was supposed to be one more O over here. Let's put that one more O some way. We have to put a one more O because that would be the oval window. And then you'd find that that will pass the vibrations onto the organ of Corti in the cochlea, and that will be stimulated and nerve impulses are created, and the auditory nerve takes the nerve impulses to the cerebrum. And finally, you must add that the extra pressure waves are absorbed by the round window. So that is the pathway taken by your sound waves in bringing about hearing. Sorry about the interruption, my darlings. Okay, so let's just undo all of this and let's just look at the structure of the ear again. Good. So there's your pinna, here's your auditory canal, tympanic membrane. Hammer, anvil, stirrup are the ossicles which amplify the vibrations because they become progressively smaller. And then because the tympanic membrane has a larger surface area compared to the oval window, you'd find that the vibrations would also be amplified. Your eustachian tube, your round window, and there's your, once again, your round window and your oval window and your round window. There's your organ, your cochlea, sorry, my darlings, and inside your cochlea, you've got your organ of Corti, which converts the sound waves into impulses, which are carried by the auditory nerve right up until it reaches the cerebrum where it is interpreted. So that is the sensation of hearing that is brought about by the ear. And when I meet you in the next video, we'll talk about the role of the ear in balancing.